Deep South, right here in the African American owned broadcasting studio. We believe digital.com, our own platform. And so it's critically important that in the African American community, we control the narrative. I look forward to receiving opportunities to show and advertise your products for goods and services and to move your brand along in this community. We're broadcasting live on Facebook. When We Believe Digital Podcast, go to Roku and download our app, and We Believe Global, with shows like this to bring articulate, intelligent conversations and dialogue to our platform. So I'm here to continue sounding the alarm. This is how the South is going to rise again. And the residents of Jackson were without water, couldn't flush their commodes, couldn't take a bath, couldn't just take care of those basic necessities because all of our pipes froze. 2 years later, we have another ice storm and the city goes down again. We lose pressure at the water plant. It was a combination of a perfect storm. The storm came in with the Pearl River being flooded and the storm at the same time, and we lost the water plant. So once again, we could not drink the water. We could not provide for sanitary needs in Jackson. And then we had the garbage debacle where the city council of Jackson and the mayor were at odds at whom the collector ought to be. Waste Management had held a contract for some 35 years, and they sought to keep that contract. The mayor sent out a request for a proposal, better known as an RFP, gave it to a select committee. They scored it and made the recommendation that the contract should be awarded to Richards Disposal Services. Now, many of us celebrated, including myself, because Richards Disposal happens to be African American owned. A black man, even though he's not from Jackson, he resides in New Orleans, Louisiana. But yet again, we celebrate when a black man is successful anywhere in the world. He can be in Brazil, he can be in Moss Point, he can be from Texas. When a black man's win, it's an opportunity for us to say that winning is possible. And that's all we need to know, that winning is possible. And when we know that, others will follow suit and they will attempt to do so as well. And so we had the great debacle because the mayor wouldn't release his position to choose someone other than Richard's disposal, and the council wouldn't back out of their position to allow Richards to have the contract. So Richards quit picking up the garbage, and Jackson went 2 weeks without garbage collections in our city. Trash piled up everywhere you could look. And of course, we had the infestation of rodents and all kinds of animals that we hadn't seen in a while. The possum, some people up north call it an opossum. We call it the possum, probably one of the ugliest animals God has ever made. But he was seen around town strutting his stuff, all during the garbage debacle. Well, Jackson then was in the news because the governor of the great state of Mississippi said that he'd rather be anywhere other than Jackson, because Jackson was African-American led. All of our mayors for the last 20 years have been African-American. The city council is predominantly black, with 5 blacks and 2 whites. Hinds County, of which Jackson resides in Hinds County, is run by a board of supervisors that are all black. The city itself is some 85% black, and that was just too much for the governor to handle. So in a speech that he made, I think down in Hattiesburg, he said it's a great day not to be in Jackson. The mayor accused the governor of holding funds for him that had been sent down from Washington, D.C. to help the city with its infrastructure, and none of those funds ever got to the city of Jackson. The mayor cried foul and said that the city couldn't fix the water plant because it did not have the resources. Congressman Thompson and others, president of One Voice and the NAACP, Derrick Johnson, rallied the troops, and finally the EPA out of D.C., Commissioner Reagan came in, and they took over Jackson's water, taking it away from the governor, who had commandeered the plant, and he was now running the plant and choosing all of the contractors, etc. So the feds came in and took it away from the state. Well, what did they do then? They turned around and they put a white czar in charge of Jackson. Now, here we are, black city, 180,000 people, 85% of them are black, but now we got a white czar that's in charge of all our water repairs and things of that nature. Feds put some $600 million into Jackson to fix this water plant and pipes, but it did not give those funds to black elected officials. So Jackson continues to have trouble. Then we had the great debacle about the police force that the governor put in place, and the legislature passed a bill that allowed the governor to appoint a police chief that ruled inside of Jackson, that the citizens of Jackson did not elect, did not want, but we have them anyway. It's called the Capitol Police, and they patrol downtown, all out around Jackson State University and Fondren, etc. And it's caused some controversy because the governor also went on to appoint judges to hear cases that the people did not elect. So now we got a de facto government, a rogue government that's running inside of a city at the same time that our folk did not elect. And so we've had a lot going on, and we managed to work our way through it the best that we can. And we're at a point where we were looking for some relief, some bright point of all of the difficult times that we've come through. We were hoping and praying that we would get a bright point. It just does not seem that that's going to happen, because recently Jackson's back in the news again today and yesterday and last week, because a young man walking out on the interstate was run over by an off-duty police officer of the city of Jackson driving a police vehicle. The death was not reported to the family. The young man was ultimately buried, and their mother had filed a missing persons looking for her son, and she found that he had been buried. And all hell broke out. And so now, once again, Jackson has turned on itself. The national attention is on Jackson. Al Sharpton and Ben Crump are in our city now trying to say that someone must pay. someone must pay. And so the question becomes, the real relative question becomes now, can black folk actually lead this city? Can black folk be in charge? Can black folk run this city? Do we have to have someone else come in and be our master? Or are we back on a plantation where we came from and fought so hard to get off of? Or are we in fact being ushered back into plantation status, where we will have a white master that runs the store, and each year he will tell us what we will pay and for what commodities and how often we can have those. Next thing you know, there'll be a limit on the number of children that you can have, and you will be told every day whether you can go or come or move around in the state of Mississippi, in particular those areas that are run by black people. Now, as always, it's a great privilege for me to have my co-host here with us. He's a man that needs no introduction, Dr. Eldridge Henderson. I always say that he is street smart and he's book smart. Why do I say street smart? Because he was born on a plantation in the Mississippi Delta and then became Dr. Eldridge Henderson from having such a humble beginning. And so, without any further ado, let me welcome my co-host to this evening's show. Dr. Henderson, how are you, sir?
I'm doing fine, sir.
It's always good to see you.
Thank you, but I tell you, you have me depressed today. I came up in here, Mr. Socrates, feeling real good. The activity at work was sort of limited, not a lot going on. Had a chance to do some reading and meditating. And now you're telling me there's nothing good about Jackson, Mississippi for the last 2 or 3 years. And I was just waiting and listening to hear you talk about the good part of those incidents, where we were saved, where we had solutions that were forthcoming, and at the same time, those solutions made the citizens happy. You didn't get to that point, and you covered 2 years. Now you're telling our listeners and viewers that it appears that things are going to continue through 2023 because Trump and Dennis Sweet, Attorney Sweet, is in town politicking and working with the legal system to try to punish some people for being poor leaders. Now, it appears that you don't see the future of Jackson as a very positive place. It also appears, sir, that you don't have a lot of confidence in the current leaders on the county level because some of the county people were involved in all of those incidents. You are saying basically that all the people that we vote in office, many have high standards in the community. They're recognized. They're walking around with bodyguards and all kinds of things, driving big vehicles, dressing well, and you still have us believing that there's another year coming where we're not going to have anything good to say. Now, what about the past election then that happened a few weeks ago in Mississippi? You see anything good about that?
Well, Doc, I was hoping that you would do me the honor of telling our viewers the good side of things, but I noticed that you didn't go that far either. But I'm going to give you a chance because I know that there's something bright about all of this somewhere. I'm reminded of the little boy during Christmas time. He had twin brothers, and one little brother got a red bicycle with shiny spokes in the wheels, and he complained to his daddy that the seat just wasn't quite right. The other little boy, the daddy gave a pile of horse manure to. And the little boy looked at the horse manure and he said, "Daddy, thank you very much. I know there's got to be a pony around here somewhere." So I might have described it as being a lot of horse manure, but you think there's a pony around here somewhere.
Well, it has to be. The way we are looking at the past history of Jackson, Mississippi and Hinds County in the last 2 years, I don't believe there is a horse around, but sometimes you just have to see one in your inner mind.
Oh.
and feel that if things continue the way they're going, there will be a change on the plantation, and that change is not going to be good. And since I always believe that there should be change, but I don't think we should have a change to the point, ladies and gentlemen, where you have inside agitators coming in, taking over things that they have ruled and managed for the last 200 years in Mississippi. I am of the opinion that we have leaders that are currently elected and some that will be elected that have the ability and the skills to manage Jackson and Hinds County. I also believe that those that are highly qualified will not run for public office because of some of the underhanded deals that's going on in this state. But I can assure you that with the political moves that happened here recently, there might be some good days ahead for Hinds County and the city of Jackson.
Well,
As you know, we have 3 new supervisors that will take office in January 2024. Soon you're going to have a new election in Hinds County, in the city of Jackson, with city council people in a couple of years. And there's going to be a lot of new people moving into political positions, at least trying to run for office. And you might see some light in some of those folks. At least I hope so. Now, if you keep on talking like this about Jackson, Mississippi, I might have to move out on the coast up in North Mississippi somewhere. And a lot of people say that'll probably be a good thing if old Doc get out of town for a while.
well, Doc, you said there's nowhere that you can go where you really want it, so I think you ought to stay here.
Well, I really appreciate that. I'm just talking now. There's no need to run when it gets hot in the kitchen.
That's right. So, Doc, let's look inside of it. This incident with Ben Crump and Al Sharpton to come down to Jackson, Mississippi, and put on this great homegoing celebration of the young man that was run over sends a signal that there are no leaders in Jackson that could preach that funeral, that could take a stand on right or wrong. I mean, we have Jerry Young, who is the president of the National Baptist Association. We have Bishop Crudup here, which is the bishop of the Fellowship of International Churches. We have Bishop Glade Hill, which is the bishop of Church of God in Christ. And so we have all of these bishops and all of these high-ranking ministers. Why did we need Al Sharpton to come into Jackson, Mississippi to preach this funeral?
I will answer that very quickly and securely. We didn't need Al Sharpton, and we didn't need Ben Crump to do that. But the rule generally is there's nothing good you can find from your hometown, even though you have some of the smartest people around. And many times, these outside scalawags that come into the state are coming for social, political, and economic reasons, and in order also to write books and increase their fees, so when they come the second, the third, and the fourth time, they'll get rich and retire young, and then be consultants for the federal government, the international agencies, and so forth, and write 3 or 4 books every 2 or 3 years, and die millionaires or billionaires. For instance, Attorney Crump, I've read his history. He has been very successful for a while, and he's not even now considered, a lawyer that's chasing money. People call him. He doesn't go and seek anything. He just come, and he's coming with a contract in his pocket and wants somebody to sign it so they can sue someone. That's his job. That's what he's supposed to do. Reverend Al Sharpton is a charlatan minister. He is a social agitator. And he has great sponsors that give him directions, and people want the spotlight. They want the spotlight to shine on their individual cases. And it's all about money, prestige. That's what it's all about. They overlook the local person. And time you have some major problems, they then start going to those same people that you just mentioned, like Bishop Crudup. They'll be running over to his church, seeking food and other things, be calling Reverend Dr. Jerry Young about some kind of social aid. They'll be looking at the local lawyers for support, because Ben Crump and Sharpton are not going to show up for small matters. That's going to be handled by people like you and others that are here working and trying to survive and help this city move forward and be as competitive as possible.
Now we're up against a commercial break, but we're going to come back, and I want to deal with these two words that you've uttered here this evening. Shallowag. I don't know exactly if I've heard that term defined. And the other one is a charlatan. And those two words being used in a conversation about leaders, African American leaders, is going to take a little bit better dig on my part to see why you chose those words. But now you're watching Socrates Garrett Live, and we're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi, in the heart of the Deep South. If you're watching this program on Facebook, then go on and send us some stars. Share this program with your friends and family. If you're watching it on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. We're in the middle of a subscription campaign. We need your support. If you're watching us on WeBelieveDigital.com, our very own platform, then hit the donate button and share this program with your friends and family. We're going to go to a commercial break, but we'll be right back.
Looking for the hottest content in the city of Jackson and surrounding areas? Check out WeBelieveDigital.com. Also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We Believe Digital Podcast is here for all your podcasting needs.
Have you had your Earth Blend coffee today? At Earth Blend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earth Blend Coffee. To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
Welcome back to Socrates Garrett Live. Now we're going to get right back into it. We were talking about the fact that Jackson seems to be under some kind of foreign leadership in most of our critical areas. We got a white czar in charge of our water. We had to import foreigners to preach the funeral of Dexter Wade last week. We have a defunct police department, and we have a rogue police department that's operating side by side. And a lot of things are going on that we're gonna talk about. But Dr. Henderson, now the leadership, the question of leadership in Jackson is on full display. Now, you describe some of the national leaders as charlatans or scalawags that come in here looking for an opportunity to enrich themselves.
Of course, I'm just going to be straight about it because that's history. That happens every time there's a major problem in a city or a state or a country. You're going to have others that's on the outside looking in for an opportunity. They are professional entertainers economically. Some of them are in religion, others are in law and other places. And whenever there is some pressure or pain or oppression in an area, they show up. A good example when they had the so-called Civil War in America, where they were fighting for economic freedom and cultural independence versus fighting for slavery to be maintained in the South. When they had the war ended, 1865, in less than 2 years, we had all kinds of people coming to Mississippi. A lot of them were from the North. They decided to run for office, and they won a lot of offices. Blacks, white, and others, former slaves and so forth, free blacks, and they took over, and things changed for at least 7 years in Mississippi. And since these people were outside agitators here for economic gain and publicity, they allowed the Republicans to ease out, and the old Democrats came back into power in Mississippi, and that lasted up until the 1960s, the mid-1960s. And every time you have a problem in almost any state, especially in the South, you will have outsiders coming in, preaching, talking, and leaving. And then the same people that are getting all the hard times from the very people you were talking about, governors, police chiefs, police, and others, are punished and forgotten. And it takes years for things to change to the point where you have what I call homegrown leadership. And they do have these people in the shadows in Mississippi and in other states, and in just a few years, these people are going to start emerging as leaders, and I hope it's less than a few years. I hope it's starting in 2024.
I hope you're right about that emergence of new leaders and capable leaders, but I think we got to take a look at our leadership. And so I want to go to the mayor of the city of Jackson. Now, let me say this. This young man is educated, he's articulate. This young man has been the mayor, this is his second term in that particular office. This young man was a bright, shining star during the water crisis. I saw him on national TV, and he was there. And he seems to have fallen out of grace. So is it a question of incompetence, or is it a question of the environment? Is it a question of the surroundings? Is he getting bad advice? Is his staff giving him information that is required for him to make great decisions? Why is a man of his talent, educated, or a lawyer by training, articulate, why is he having trouble running this city?
Well, there are several reasons, but the main reason is you have to think about the history of Mississippi and the South and what I call economic obstacles that are faced and put forth in the politician's lap. Usually, when there is something going on anywhere in the nation where you have had special interest groups controlling the politics, the churches, economics, contracts, and everything else, they want to stay in power. And when you get a mayor that's progressive and won't change, his leadership style has to change, and he has to court, C-O-U-R-T, court his underlings, his commissioners, his aides, his manager, and get them in private meetings and get their support, at least a majority support, so he can rule. And in order to do that, any leader will have to be able to look at the, what I call problems that's associated with the people in the positions and find out what their problems and weaknesses are and try to correct them. Or let them know that I expect your support. I want the majority support here on these issues. This is our collective effort, this city, this county, this area, and we are going to have to work together to solve the people's problem, or I'm going to use my power and get you out of this office. All of this is supposed to be discussed in private. You allow then someone other than yourself to get with this person. There's always someone out there, that someone that is what I call moving to the right or left of center will listen to if you start talking about his or her weaknesses. You have to call others in as a support person and say, council person, supervisor, or whatever, you need to work for the betterment of society, for the people that you are representing. You are not in charge anywhere. You are representing the people. They are paying you, and you're supposed to look out there for interest. And then the mayor or anyone else then will find someone else to support and vote for that new person that's coming into office.
So are you saying that the mayor has the need, and maybe even a responsibility, to help select the members of the council?
Well, I would call it underhanded, yes, through his representatives and his outside supporters. Right, he need to go to them and say, we have 2 obstructionists, or 3, on this council, and Reverend John, businessman Peterson, we need for you to make us some recommendations that there are certain people we need for you to support financially and so forth to replace these recalcitrants that we have in this city council or in this supervisory position.
So we take an issue like we've been talking about. We've been talking about the tragic death of Dexter Wade, a young man that was run over on the interstate by an off-duty police officer in a police vehicle that was improperly buried, and the family was not notified. And now all hell is broken loose because Al Sharpton and Ben Crump are in the city, and they're saying that someone must be held responsible and someone must pay. But we're all black city. And so I'm wondering exactly who should pay. What is Ben Crump's angle and Sharpton's angle for getting paid?
It's very simple. The citizens going to pay. The citizens are insured heavily through city insurance policies. You know, cities don't have any money. They spend citizens' money. So the city will be sued, probably the mayor, some of the police officers, including some of the police chiefs, old or current, because this thing has gone on a couple of years, and the citizens are going to be stuck with millions of dollars in fees that coming from our coffers through insurance. Trump will get his 1/3 or 1/4. Other people will get millions, and the same problem and the same dance will be performed next year. And then you will find people like Al Sharpton being called over and over. And as you know, those kind of guys that are national and internationally known work through strong special interest groups. They get millions of dollars in grants for travel and for programs and to hire staff and others, ride around in private planes and big cars with security all over the world, and especially all over America, to promote a specific agenda. It might be conservatism in some instances, liberalism in others, might be a minority focus in others, might be working with immigration in others. It's always a special group that's financing certain people to do certain things that's against what we call the common good in most cases. And there's always enough money to buy those kind of people, and they just show up. Some are just waiting to get that call so they can make $10,000, $15,000 when they do a speech and leave the next night.
Now, I'm not opposed to anybody getting paid. Anybody ought to get paid for the work that they do. I think that is the American way. But you seem to be implying that these people will represent groups that don't have the interests of the black community at heart.
I would say that without hesitation and reservation. I don't know of not one group in America that's concerned about the positive welfare of black people anywhere in America. And even though those groups are not known openly, but the people that are paying them, if you do the research, you'll be surprised who some of these people are, through certain organizations that are supported by your own enemy within your state, but they are silent. And these groups have millions of dollars, and they continue to raise money. And their job is to always change the structure with their interests in mind. They want the contracts. They want to be in the political positions. They want to be in a position where they appoint commissioners and board chairmen and agency heads while they lay low and not be known. They want to be able to put someone in power and then call them and say, I want a $30 million contract. I want you to change the legislative law where my company can get $10 million for a certain project. That's what they do. That's what we call democracy in America. And you change laws to fit your need if you had the power to do it. And that's why most people don't want to lose their control over politicians.
Now, I'm told that Al Sharpton has great support from the tobacco industry. I'm told that he is opposed to the ban on menthol cigarettes that the government has decided it needs to ban because it is more cancerous and is causing more deaths than anything else. And we have to know that African Americans are smoking more menthol cigarettes than any other ethnic group. So how would Al reconcile supporting being opposed to the ban on menthol cigarettes, but yet want to come to Jackson, Mississippi and preach the funeral of a young man that just got run over? How does he reconcile
Well,
that?
he doesn't have to reconcile it. If you look at his history, he used to smoke. He was a smoker, he was overweight, and had all kinds of health problems. He was able to overcome those, so naturally, he's going to do what's best for Al Sharpton and his goals and objectives of his nonprofit organization. And he and others will take the money from anyone that want to give them something to carry out their goals and objectives, whether it's good or bad. That's not sounding good, but that is just a fact. When you're in business to do good or harm, you're looking for someone to support it. And if they support it, you might not even like the product that you're endorsing. You say it publicly, but you wouldn't touch it in private if someone paid you to do it.
So I don't think you ought to have it both ways.
Well, you shouldn't, but that's just the American way, to have it both ways, sometimes three ways.
So we're going to take a look at that. We're right up against a commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about out-of-state leaders, national leaders, who supports them, and what they advocate for, and if in fact it's in the best interest of African Americans at large overall. So we want you to stay tuned. This is Socrates Garrett Live. We're broadcasting out of Jackson, Mississippi. This is the only program that's going to bring you content that you won't find anywhere else. No one else is going to break it down and talk to you about what's going on here like Dr. Henderson and I. We're going to go to this commercial. You stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Dreaming of becoming an entrepreneur, but you're not sure where or how to start? At Entrepreneurs Academy 101, our online program will guide you step by step on how to start and grow your own business. We offer courses such as how to write a business plan, how to create a budget, and so much more. Our online training program is designed for you to learn at
But you want to shift the blame to the county.
Have you had your Earth Blend coffee today?
Are you dreaming of becoming an entrepreneur, but you're not sure where or how to start? At Entrepreneurs Academy 101, our online program will guide you step by step on how to start and grow your own business. We offer courses such as how to write a business plan, how to create a budget, and so much more. Our online training program is designed for you to learn at your own pace, and there's no set order to complete this program. Because our academy is online, you have the choice to learn with a group, with friends, or individually. Upon completion of the entire curriculum, you will receive a certificate of achievement to acknowledge that you have completed the training needed to become a successful entrepreneur. So enroll today to design the life that you love. Contact your entrepreneur coach, Brenda Myers, at 601-672-0695 or visit our website at www.entrepreneursacademy101.com for more information.
Welcome back to Socrates, Garrett Live. We're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi. We Believe Digital Podcast on YouTube. Look us up on Instagram, on Facebook, on WeBelieveDigital.com. Check us out on TikTok and what used to be Twitter, now X or whatever it's called. And so, we bring you the kinds of content and the information that you're not going to find anywhere else. We're not sweeping things under the rugs. We're not playing favorites here. Well, Charles Tisdale, local journalist, used to say, we're going to tell it whether it pinches or comfort. And we're going to bring you the information that you can kind of figure something out with. Because until we put the problem on the table, you can't fix it. You can't solve a problem that you haven't identified. Now, with this recent death and improper burial of Dexter Wade has created some trauma in our city. Al Sharpton and Ben Crumper in this city, and I'm not exactly sure why they're here, because we have competent, capable individuals that should be able to handle Jackson's business. We're all black community, so you got a black mayor, a black city council, you got a black coroner, you got a black board of supervisors, you got a black sheriff. And so if there is a crime, if there is something that was done improperly, we are now saying that we don't have the internal capacity to police ourselves. So we cry out for others to come in. Once again, too many foreign leaders are in Jackson controlling our resources and making decisions for black people. We are as close to being back on the plantation as we have ever been. But we're going to continue this dialogue. Dr. Henderson, I'm told that the city of Jackson, the city council, has voted to issue a resolution apologizing to the Dexter Wade family. Now, this apology is tantamount to saying the city is guilty of something. Would you say that's going to hurt the city in court?
I would say it will if there's a serious, thorough investigation on this matter. Sometimes it is always a good policy to say that someone else is guilty and cast the blame elsewhere to get the attention off yourself. That's an old strategy. Nothing wrong with that if you can make it work in your behalf. But now if you can't, you got a problem. Because when you start investigating and find out what I call the others that were involved, if it's not one of the top leaders, that means the others with S got orders from someone. So they're going to say, who told me to do the following? And it's going to get back to the original person. So a good investigator can find the trail on a timeline to show everything from when the young man was hit on I-55 to what happened yesterday.
Now, Doc, we're all black here. So are you saying that the chain is going to unveil more black people being involved than just the mayor?
Of course. You cannot have an incident this significant where just one person involved. Some are involved by negligence, just turning their head away when they hear that certain things is happening. There are others that want to make things happen in another way, but they don't have the power in their minds to speak up. They just turn the cheek and let it happen. But with a thorough investigation, as I said earlier, there can be a timeline established and people will know for sure who the people were that made A, B, C, D, and F decision that will lead up to yesterday in these matters.
I don't know if I've learned the name of the police officer that was involved in this.
Well, let me answer that for you. I bet if he had a police car assigned to him, I bet he has a name. I bet the current police chief knows, the one that was the police chief during his time. I bet his commanding officers know who he is. I bet there are a lot of people on the police force know who that person was. And I bet there are a lot of clerks and others, janitors and others in the community know who he is or was. No such thing as not knowing who the people are that are doing things.
Now, it's a lot of disturbing things here for me. One is that I saw a picture of the cemetery that the young man was buried in, and it had just the number 672 on it. Now, I'd never seen anything that looked like that. It's a type of pauper cemetery?
Yes, that's right. They have one.
What is this?
That's nothing new. They have always had what we call cemeteries for paupers or people that are not of any significance all over the world. Asia, Africa, Europe, America, and especially in America during slavery time. They had the slave cemeteries. You know, you couldn't bury them with white folks. And they would put them anywhere where they didn't have cotton or corn or a field where they were making money. Just stick them out there somewhere. You know, they didn't have ceremonies of any significance. They didn't have grave markers, and they would just throw them out there. And then they passed laws in the South, and I'm quite sure in the North, where they had these pauper grave sites. And usually they were codified on the county level. And when someone could not be identified, you just call the county sheriff or the supervisors and say, we have a body here in the morgue, we can't find any relatives, and we want you to take care of it. And this body is going to be claimed by someone. They're going to pick him or her up, take him to the cemetery, and bury that person. They're going to have prisoners or aides or some staff people to bury this person. The dead cannot bury themselves. So that's why I say you can always track down who did what, when, where, and how.
So if you are a homeless person and you are found dead, it's likely that you'll just be buried somewhere in a pauper's grave without anybody. How much of this is going on all the time?
Well, I'm quite sure it's more than you know, because that is not to be discussed. Those kind of things are not supposed to be discussed. Those are private matters. Those are political decisions that people don't want to talk about. And you'll be surprised that happens all the time. That's why they have morgues at the hospitals and places. There are not too many things you can do with a body. You can give it to the local medical school, or you can get it and cremate it. Someone has to sign for that, and it's either someone at the hospital or the state agency head in some entity, or it might be a local person that make that decision, whether you're going to cremate the person or put them in a pauper's grave. That's legal, and it's done all over the world. You don't just throw them out in the bushes anymore like they
Well,
used to.
is the board of supervisors making that decision, or is the sheriff making that decision? Is the coroner making that decision? Is the police chief making that decision? Is the mayor making that decision? Is the governor making that decision?
Hold on. You just named them. All of them are indirectly in charge of the administration of local and state government. And if you want to find out the specific person, the special person, they have laws in the state that address those issues. What happens to the people that can't be identified. It's a good lawyer can find that in 30 seconds. All they have to do is Google dead, identified, unidentified citizens in Hinds County, what they do with them. There are no secrets. A lot of people are involved, and that's why don't nobody want to talk about it. And that's why they say, we are just going to sweep this under the rug. Nobody will worry about this, but they forgot that earlier, before Mr. Wade was discovered, they had a similar problem with this family, with I believe was an uncle in this family. And they had a sister at that time that was looking out for the interests of her brother, if I'm correct. And later on, this same sister had a son involved in a similar situation. And of course, she had experience by that time, and she is a fighter. And she decided that something got to be exposed here. This family is suffering too much. And if you look at the first burial with that cross on it, with that number, and compare it with the second burial at a certain church in South Jackson, up on the hill, and go to that graveyard, you look at the difference, the quality, the economic quality in the gravesite. You saw it, didn't you?
I did. I was disturbed by it. I was very, very disturbed by it because it looked like an open field that was not taken care of, and it had some 672 on it flashed on the screen. Now, who wants to be a number?
Well,
I mean, who wants to get reduced to being a number?
Mr. Socrates, when you're insignificant in the minds of others, they're just doing their job. They're not going to be spending their money to buy you a stone. They're not going to be taking the time to give you an appropriate burial. They are getting an order from their supervisor, go out there and take care of this job. It's like being called by Public Works to go and cut a tree out of the road that the tornado blew over last night. You just go out and do it. You might not want to do it.
It's a tough job.
It's a tough job, sir.
It's tough decisions for some to have to make as well. And this mother seems to be showing and talking to the world now about what happened to her son. And many say this is an Emmett Till moment again in Mississippi.
And that's,
but, but the deal is that, you know, we had a natural adversary during the times of Emmett Till's murder. I mean, it was clear the Klan was running rampant in the state of Mississippi, and blacks were banding together and trying to find a strategy to defend themselves in 1953 or 54. Here we are in 2023, and all of the leaders are black. We can't have an Emmett Till moment. We can't have a young man that is buried without any of his family members knowing that he has been run over and is buried. That can't happen in 2023.
But it's happening. And believe it or not, if you get history, the same group were involved. The Democrats were involved in the political positions when Till got killed up in
Money,
Mississippi. And Democrats were in charge when the Wade young man was killed.
Now, this is not partisan, I don't think.
Now I'm just giving you the fact that the Democrats were were in office during both periods.
Well, I will give you the facts that most atrocities that have happened in the African American community were committed by Republicans.
Oh, really?
Yes.
You mean recently?
Recently, yes.
Oh, yeah, recently, of course, in the South. But the Southern Democrats have killed 10 times more people in the South than the Southern Republicans. 10 times more. They killed them from pre-slavery through 1965 without lynch laws. No kind of control on murder, rape, strangulation, castration. And the people that did it didn't even worry about going to jail. They never worried about losing a case. They would just sit there and say, I'm not guilty. Pass me another cigarette or give me a can of beer. And they walk out.
Doug, we're out of time. I need to be out of town. We're out of time, and we're going to have to continue to bring you information about how all of this is going to end up. Is our city going to be taken to court, or citizens of Jackson going to have to pay out large sums of money? Will this affect the mayor's political career? Will it affect the city council's career? Will it affect the board of supervisors? just where does this all end? So I want you to stay with us next week. We'll be back, and I want everyone out there to have a good evening. But just before we go, Doc, tell the people how they can get in touch with you.
Well, as you know, ladies and gentlemen, you can get in touch with Eldridge Henderson, Real News, Organized Don't Criticize show, at 601-201-1957. We are on this channel, WeBelieveDigital.com, every Thursday and Friday, and of course on Tuesday evenings. And if you want us to come by your place, your school, your church, your community organization, in-state, out-of-state, or internationally, just call us. 1-800-492-5186. And Sock and Duck will come and talk to you and give you the real version of the Eld Henderson Real News Show and tell you how you can start solving your problems and deal with some of the same people that are causing you a lot of harm. And I want you to understand, when you hear the real facts, it is not just Republicans and Democrats. It's a lot of elected and non-elected people, black and white, that's causing all these problems. And someone is going to have to expose them, start calling names, and have them to surrender, have them to resign, have them to move and go where their relatives are, to New York City, California, and other places, because it's supposed to be too hot down here in the South for a lot of these people that are maintaining the status quo.
We want you to come back and join us. I want to send a shout out there to Randy Wildman Brown, who's vacationing. He's out of the city, out of the state right now. But Randy, we miss you and I hope that you get back here soon. I want to send a shout out to Curtis Williams, the young man who is our engineer for tonight, doing an outstanding job because Chelsea Thomas, our normal engineer, is out sick, and we believe it's the next man up. Curtis stepped in, and so he is producing this show this evening. Shout out to Herman Taylor, a young man that's working very close with us to try to bring the internet radio station up to its full capacity. So we have a great team, and the young lady that you see putting up all those clips and reels out there, Lisa out in Dallas, Texas, she's doing an outstanding job for us as well. So we just have a full team of most talented people, and all we need now is you. I want you to stay tuned. Coming up a little bit later on, around 7 p.m., a little bit later, will be Organized Don't Criticize with your host, Dr. Eldridge Henderson. Y'all stay safe and good night. Good evening. I'm Socrates Garrett, and we're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson.